You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. Today we're talking with a woman who has been successfully organizing and solidifying the clout of women state senators like herself, but all over the United States. Also with us again is the expert on Native women's health issues, which overlaps with and includes violence against women issues and, surprise, oil pipeline. Last, a report from the founder and president of a first in this country, the Women's Mosque of America. 3 different and vital women who are a perfect fit for Women's History Month because they're making women's history. But first, we need to look inside the headlines. 2 stories inside the headlines this week. The first, the Hillary email scandal. Well, an interesting piece by Michael Tomasky in the Daily Beast, which you may have seen or heard of, pointed out that not so fast on the scandal thing. The article in the New York Times, he points out, said that there were new regulations that Clinton was supposed to abide by. It notes that one past sex state, Colin Powell, who served from 2001 to 2005, sometimes used his personal email account before, quote, before the new regulations went into effect. And Tomasky asks, when did they go into effect? If 2007 or 2008, then Clinton would appear to be in direct violation, depending what they said precisely. If later, it gets a little murkier. And an interesting piece by the public editor of the New York Times, Margaret Sullivan, who has been on the show and is an extremely smart person and is the voice of the public to the New York Times. She wrote a critical article both defending the journalism of the Times and pointing out that the Times would have done better to have clearer reporting. Most of these regulations did exist well before 2014, when the National Records Act was amended. They were included in the National Archives and Records Administration 2009 regulations. And she criticizes the article, saying that it should have had explanatory details. But what it boils down to is double standard for Hillary. She was not the first secretary to use a private email account. In fact, Kerry, the current sex state, is the first to use a standard government email address, according to the Washington Post, which of course never makes any mistakes. Clinton did turn her emails over to the State Department. It's not clear whether any of her predecessors did the same. The Times article claims that the existence of her personal email account was discovered by a House committee investigating the attack on the American consulate in Benghazi, one of the 7,022 committees investigating that. That, however, is incorrect, at least according to Tomasky. Gawker, which we know is such a reliable source, reported this first. And also, at the time Clinton was secretary, the Federal Records Act did not require federal employees to use government accounts, only to preserve records of their communications, which she seems to have done. I do think this could have been handled better by the Clinton camp, and I do think this could have been handled better by the New York Times. So I'm torn between being a Hillary supporter and wanting to live to see a viable woman president, and being a journalist who believes that this was not meant as an attack on her personally. But it's a mess. In any event, it's good to move on, because this is not going to stop her. It's not going to stop women from believing in her. And it's an unfortunate mess, but I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think the Crab Nebula cares. Now, for the second item inside the headlines, I think if the Crab Nebula could care about anything, it might care about this: the destruction of antiquities by the insanity that is calling itself the Islamic State. The destruction of statues and archaeological sites in Mosul, in Nimrud, in Hatra, in Karsabad, the burning of the Mosul Library had me, as I'm sure it had some of you, in tears. This is the destruction of human history and art. And then I thought of Shelley's poem Ozymandias, and it was a strange comfort. You may remember that it's about the traveler from a distant land, an antique land, who discovers these parts of a destroyed statue in the desert. And it ends, and on the pedestal these words appear: "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." And I thought of the Assyrian monarchs whose statues the fanatics had bulldozed. And I thought, this too will come in time to those doing the bulldozing. Now it's time for our first guest. Georgia State Senator Nan Orrock cut her political eye teeth as an activist when she was a college student in the civil rights movement, and she hasn't stopped since. She is a founder of the Georgia Legislative Women's Caucus. She is the chair of the board of the Center for Policy Alternatives, and she has served since 1997 as president of the Women's Legislators Lobby, a national network of women state legislators launched by Women's Action for New Directions. Senator Nan Orrock, welcome, Nan.
Thank you so much, Robin. It's great to be with you and your listeners all around the globe.
You've accomplished so much. The founder of the and the president of the Women Legislators Lobby, which is a national network of women state legislators. More and more is moving to the state level, and so this is all the more crucial these days, isn't it?
It really is, and as we see, we fared poorly in the last elections. Our numbers are not where they need to be at any of the tables of power, and Women Legislators Lobby is a program of WAND, and we've worked for 30 years as WAND and 20 years with the Women Legislator Network to bring more women to the power tables because of our firm conviction, Robin, and I know your listeners agree, that our perspective, our life experience, we have a great deal to offer in terms of leadership, and it's a global struggle to put women at the power tables, and we're working on it here in the United States, as well as working with an exciting new program with parliamentarians in the Middle East and North Africa region. Mm-hmm. We just came back from a meeting with them. And, the UN has recognized that women need to be at the peacemaking tables, and we're working on that as well.
Resolution 1325.
That's right.
Now we have to get them to enforce it.
We have been working with women and members of Congress, introducing a Women, Peace, and Security Act to bring the United States more in line and in accord with the UN 1325.
That would be good. Nan, let's for a moment step back and focus a little closer to home. Because you're a state legislator for Georgia, and because you've been so effective in organizing women state legislators, and because so much, like, for example, who will and who won't accept Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. So many of these decisions, more and more, seem to be made at the states' rights level. Immigration, so many tweaks can be done. What can we do? People don't seem to understand how absolutely vital elections at the state level are.
They used to stand in the schoolhouse door in the South. Mm-hmm. Now, sadly, these Republican governors are standing in the hospital door, blocking the Medicaid expansion. And Georgia is one of those states.
Oh, it's just heartbreaking. I mean, is it a problem of not enough women running for state office on the state level? Because on the national level, it's usually boils down to the enormous amount of money required, even for a congressional race. But is that a deterrent as well, or why are there not more women running?
Well, I think that there are multifaceted reasons, and one, women and upstanding men are often turned off by the rancor, the polarization, what has become of American politics, and there are just a slew of folks who don't care to engage in that arena. The public is being turned off by politics, losing faith in the institutions, all of that. I certainly the bitter harvest of the polarization.
Yeah.
But there's also the question of, we laugh and we say, down here a young man gets over at the University of Georgia, joins the right fraternity, and plans to be the next governor when he gets out of college. Would that we women were so ambitious. We juggle and balance the demands of home and family, and we also have, Robin, the never-ending battle against the internalized view of being second class, somehow not being ready for prime time. That message that still all too often is sent to women at all strata of society. So, and then there's the money, and there's what it takes to get out there and raise the money, and the fact that you've got the gender bias among the funding crowd. The statistics show, and folks have done some great work on this, that women are much more viable than they were in the past. When I first knocked on doors, I had people telling me to go home and take care of my kids. Men. That was years ago when I first ran in the late 80s. But now the findings are that the public has a confidence in women. They feel that we'll communicate with them, we'll listen to them, we'll stay grounded, we'll address their needs, and that they can place their confidence in us, that we're not going to be in the smoke-filled back rooms, cutting dirty deals, and being corrupt. So all of that, it's the time for women to flock into office. Well, we work in the Women Legislator Lobby, and that's a network of about 700 of the women that are currently serving are part of our network, and we have many, many, many people who've moved on to other. 50 of the women in the U.S. Congress came through our ranks and with the backing of our PAC, and welcome us when we come to the Hill, which is terrific. That change is far too slow, but we're seeing inroads there. But we do a lot of training. These are with women that are elected to hone their communication skills.
Great.
We encourage women, to become a part of the Women's Media Center
training program. The
media. Exactly.
That's right. The media savvy. Right.
That's right.
That's wonderful.
And that's critically important to build their skills, their confidence, their know-how, so that they can promote their agenda and work with us on our agenda to redirect the federal budget priorities and see that we're tending to the human services, human needs.
Is there a website for the Women's Legislator Lobby?
There is. WandWill. www.wandwill.
Okay.
WAND/will.
WAND.
WILL.
.org. Terrific. So people can find out more. You are a treasure, national, local, state-wise, international, global, and all the above, and probably interstellar. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nan, for everything that you've done, and keep on doing it.
Thank you for your lifetime of work. You're a model.
Oh, look who's talking.
No. Thank you, Robin.
We have to take a break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll be right back with some shocking data you don't know and should about the predicament of women in Indian country.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back. Charon Asetoyer, who has been a guest on this program before, is a member of the Comanche Nation. She's a Native American women's health advocate and community activist. She's the founder and executive director of the Native American Women's Health Education Resource Center since 1998. It's on the Yankton Sioux Reservation in South Dakota. And in addition to the resource center, the organization has a shelter for women fleeing sexual assault and domestic violence. And the organization also released the Indigenous Women's Health Book, Within the Sacred Circle, the first Indigenous Women's Reproductive Rights Coalition, and it continues to organize. Here is wonderful Charon Asetoyer. Charon, welcome back to the Women's Media Center Live.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on your show.
Oh, it's always an honor. The work that you do on Native women's health is nobody else even equals. And today I want to talk about the report that recently you did. I mean, first as background, statistics tell us that Native American women are sexually assaulted at a higher rate than all other women in the United States, and yet receive less health care services and less due process after a sexual assault. So this particular report is about the access or lack thereof to Plan B, although it's legal as an over-the-counter contraceptive. Take it away and bring us up to speed, Charon.
Okay, well, yes, Plan B is legal, and according to the federal federal laws, the Food and Drug Administration, women can access it throughout the United States as an OTC, which is an over-the-counter, which means no age restrictions at all. However, if you're Native American and you live on a reservation and you receive your health care from the Indian Health Service, which is a division of Health and Human Services, they are not in compliance with the federal laws, which is really a very difficult situation for us to be in because of the high rate of sexual assault that you mentioned. And
why aren't they in compliance with the law?
Well, it's really interesting. We've always been kind of on the sidebar or in the parking lot, and a lot of things have happened throughout the years that have been illegal within the Indian Health Service system. I mean, there's been forced sterilizations.
Right.
There have been illegal studies done in various areas.
They've played fast and loose with the health of Native women, in other words.
Yeah, well, Native people in general, and specifically, in this instance, Native women.
Right.
So what we need to have happen is that Indian Health Service has to come up to speed and be in compliance with the Food and Drug Administration laws.
Yeah.
And that is giving access to Plan B as an over-the-counter to all Native women. And one of the things that we've done is periodically surveyed the Indian Health Service. There's over 500 service units, which could be a hospital, a clinic, an outpost. And we will, for instance, we just surveyed 63 of them. We produced a report card giving each service unit that we surveyed a letter grade from A to F, depending on whether they provide emergency contraceptive at all, to are there age restrictions. If it's 15 on up, they got a grade, 17 on up, 18 on up, etc. And meaning an age restriction, that is the age that you have to see a healthcare provider before you can are allowed to receive it. And then, just because you see a healthcare provider doesn't necessarily mean that healthcare provider is going to write an order for it to the pharmacy.
How maddening! And also the pharmacist, in many cases, maybe most for women on the reservation, the only pharmacist on most reservations is the local Indian Health Service. So it's a double whammy.
Well, this is actually very correct, and we live in very rural communities, and sometimes the closest mainstream pharmacy would be 100 miles away.
Which means gas money and a car and traveling 100 miles. My God.
Exactly. And the money to purchase it, which is around $50.
Oh, please.
So it makes it very difficult for Native women to access it. Now, last year, the ACLU, on our behalf, filed a Freedom of Information Act with Indian Health Service, and they started providing Plan B, but not standardized policies or standardized procedures, meaning that every single service unit provides it with the same age restrictions or no age restrictions. And the Tribal Law and Order Act mandates that Indian Health Service develop and implement standardized policies for their emergency rooms, especially concerning sexual assault. So this is not happening. If you have a service unit that is in compliance and has no age restrictions, and then you have one that imposes age restrictions from the age 15 on up, or doesn't even provide emergency contraceptive at all, there is no standardized sexual assault policies and protocols that are in place.
This is flat out a human rights violation, it seems to me.
It's exactly, that's what it is. It is a human rights violation. It is not providing us equal access, especially when a law has been broken, when we've been sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
Not only that, but whenever failed contraceptive has happened or spontaneous unprotected sex. So it's a very paternalistic system, and playing with our lives and denying us access. In fact, the World Health Organization has recently, and the Center for Disease Control, put out some recommendations stating that access to contraceptives for women the denial of it is a human rights issue, and that it is very important that we have access to these things. There's some other things I'd like to talk about, too, that a lot of people aren't aware of. The Violence Against Women Act, is different for Native women. We call it VAWA Light. And sexual assault was taken off the table in Indian country. And basically, what has happened and the way the law is being implemented is, according to the Violence Against Women Act, a non-Native perpetrator must have social ties to the community in order to be arrested on domestic violence charges, such as being married or engaged or living with a victim, knowing the victim intimately, working for the tribe or tribal entity. Now that's with physical violence. With sexual assault, what is not covered are crimes between two strangers. In other words, the stranger that comes onto the reservation and the hunter or the truck driver or who decides he's going to rape a Native woman. Crimes of sexual assault where the defendant is not a Native. Crimes committed by non-Natives who lack ties to the tribal community. So basically, we are not protected against rape, according to the Violence Against Women Act. One of the things that happened with that law is that some new procedures will be taking place after the first of the year, and that's giving tribes back the authority to try non-Native perpetrators in tribal court, because we haven't been able to. Since the Oliphant case took tribes' rights away from us to prosecute in tribal court. So unless the FBI is willing to come down and investigate, and they feel there's enough forensic evidence, they're not going to come down from the big city and arrest somebody and so on. So tribes have a little bit of the authority back. However, that what is not covered are the crimes between strangers. So basically, rapists have open season on reservations.
This is just horrific, absolutely horrific. And then you combine this with the terrible things they've gone on for quite a while, but they've only recently surfaced in the area around Winnipeg and, northern Wisconsin. And so where women are being lured onto ships and then trafficked, Native women. Now that's by a stranger. I mean, the overlapping of sexual assault, abduction, trafficking, all of these things cluster together and seem to focus most of all on Native women with no support. What can we do about this, Sharon? Should we be writing to our legislators? What can we do to change this?
Well, yes. Tribes need to have jurisdiction over any kind of criminal activity that occurs on our lands. Mm-hmm. Especially perpetrators that are sexually assaulting, because of the increase of the sex trafficking and the all the oil exploration that's going on up in North Dakota and so forth. They're coming down and literally kidnapping young people. Yeah. And for the sex trade, we need to let our legislators know that the mainstream America knows and isn't going to put up with it. Mm-hmm. When we start talking about fighting the pipeline, it's not only an environmental degradation, but it is a human degradation. It is a reproductive justice issue.
That's a good connection to make.
And a lot of people don't think about that until you start talking about it, the man camps and all the sex trade that goes on there.
Exactly.
And so we've got to combine movements, the environmental movement and the reproductive justice movement, and work together and let the legislators know that this is not a good thing.
The rape of women and the rape of the earth, same difference, Yeah. Oh, Sharon, what would we do without you on the case? And thank you for being with us again today, and we will check back and stay on this. Meanwhile, everybody pick up a pen or use your email, write to your representatives, and pass along this very important message.
We're asking for the repeal of the Oliphant case.
Olipphant.
Yes, Oliphant case. Mm-hmm.
We got it. Thank you again.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And now it's time for the Surrealism Corner. Two items this week, one hilariously funny and the other surreal in a darker way. Rush Limbaugh, our favorite, has suggested that the government has a conspiracy theory against ISIL to push net neutrality. Now, stick with me on this because it takes a little bit of mind games. On February 25th, two men were arrested in New York along with a Florida accomplice and charged with providing support for the Islamic State. That was a story in the New York Times. So our boy Rush took off on this during the February 25th edition of his radio program, suggesting that the news of the arrests was politically timed to coincide with the FCC's ruling on net neutrality. He suggested that they were a media conspiracy, the arrests, meant to give cover for the government to ban the sale of bullets, which was a lateral leap, but an apparent reference to a proposal by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives to limit the availability of ammo that, when fired from a handgun, is capable of penetrating body armor worn by law enforcement officers. His words are, Barack Obama is taking over the internet today. He's going to be sued. It's going to have a long shakeout period. I mean, it's not going to cease to operate today the way you're used to it. But the objective is to put it all under government control. And here comes the story how ISIS has sympathizers in New York City. They're in Brooklyn and in all 57 states. He thinks Brooklyn is a state. And ISIS is using the internet to recruit terrorists, and the government is taking control of the internet to keep us safe, he sneered. Isn't that special? The other story is far more serious, but equally, if not more severe. You remember, of course, the case of the 6 men in India who raped and, in effect, murdered the young woman, gang rape in a bus, beat up the man who was with her hugely, landed him in the hospital. Well, they've been tried and they've been found guilty. And one of them on death row for the crime, Mukesh Singh, was interviewed by a British filmmaker, Leslie Udwin, and said pointedly and plainly that the young woman invited the rape because she was out too late at night and she would have lived if she'd submitted. In a story by Ellen Barry in the New York Times, he said, and I quote, "You can't clap with one hand. It takes two hands. A decent girl won't roam around at 9 o'clock at night. A girl is far more responsible for rape than a boy. Boy and girl are not equal. Housework and housekeeping is for girls, not roaming in discos and bars at night doing wrong things, wearing wrong clothes. About 20% only of girls are good." I might add that she and her male friend had gone to see the movie The Life of Pi. So what did the Indian government do about this film, India's Daughter, when his remarks were met with public outrage? The Indian government killed the messenger, banned the film. Leslie Udwin, the filmmaker, said, "This means they've banned a film which is in the public interest without having seen it, without even having requested a copy of it." She's going to distribute the film through social media. No intelligent person can watch this film and come to the conclusion that these remarks are not being promulgated. In other words, she did not provoke them. He just went off on his own. In the interview, he added, when being raped, a woman shouldn't fight back. He added to the BBC in an interview that followed it. Women shouldn't fight back. If she had been silent and allowed the rape, he said, referring to the dead woman, then they'd have dropped her off after doing her and only hit the boy. In footage from the film, Singh tonelessly narrates the assault, saying that he heard the woman screaming for help, but his brother instructed him to keep driving as they dragged her to the back of the bus and went turn by turn on her. Afterwards, he said he saw the youngest of the assailants, who was 17 at the time, withdraw something from her body. Mr. Singh said it was her intestines. He said, "She's dead, throw her out quickly." He called it an accident himself. Months before the trial, his older brother, who was one of the perpetrators, Ram Singh, hanged himself with a bedsheet in his cell. The juvenile defendant, whose identity has not been made public, was sentenced to 3 years in detention. The remaining 4 men pled not guilty and are appealing their death sentences. Singh told the female filmmaker that he believed the harsh sentences, instead of acting as a deterrent, would drive more rapists to kill their victims. Before, he says, they would rape and say, "Leave her alone, she won't tell anyone." Now, when they rape, especially the criminal types, of whom he does not consider himself a part, obviously, now they will just kill the girl. Death. So that is the new Kill the Messenger, ban the film, surrealism, tragic item of the day. It's time for another pause here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. Don't go away, though, because when we come back, we're going to be talking with the quite young, 29 years old, founder and president of the first Women's Mosque of America.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back. I'm sure that some people, when first hearing about the Women's Mosque of America, might think that this was a project in which men were segregating women yet again. If that were the case, it would not be the first nor the last time a religion has done so. That's what Orthodox Jews do in separating the congregations. That's what the Roman Catholic Church does in stealing our skirts and then not letting us into the priesthood. I mean, I could go on ad nauseum, and you have often heard me do so. But in terms of Islam, that is not what the Women's Mosque of America is at all. It's an empowering, remarkable project for women, by and of women, and smart men too, and it was founded by a 29-year-old Muslim woman, American woman, named Hasna Maznavi. Give a listen. Hasna, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Well, it's so good to have you here. Congratulations. You are one of the founders of the Women's Mosque of America. You serve as the project's president. And it's characterized as a mosque that welcomes and empowers women. Oh, my God. Hip, hip, hooray. Tell the story of how this came to be.
Sure. So, I started out as a young child. I always had this dream that before I died, I would build a mosque. And at that age, though, I had no idea that it would be a women's mosque, and I also had no idea that I would be doing it at this age. I'm 29 now.
Boy, have you got a head start on history.
I don't know about that, but yeah, my concept of what a mosque is actually changed over the course of my life. And so, as a child, I always imagined building like a really pretty building. And then as I grew older, I started to think more about, the role of the mosque in the community's life and what type of mosque I wanted to build according to both what I was experiencing and also what I thought would be the best way to serve the Muslim community. So, long story short, this mosque really comes out of a place of love and inspiration and really out of the empowerment that I felt actually as a teenager, reading the Quran in English for the first time and just learning, not only learning about what was in the Quran, but I think the most important thing that I learned was about the Quran was what was not in it. Because at the time, it was right after 9/11. I think I was in 11th grade, and I was hearing so many things in the media about my religion, and so I finally decided to just take matters into my own hands and do my own research. And as you know, the majority of Muslims around the world are not Arab. Only about 20% or less are Arab, and so the majority of us Muslims, grow up reciting the Quran in Arabic, but we don't know what it actually is saying. And so reading it in English, and I read the Muhammad Assad translation, which has the historical context for the verses, which I think is really, really important. That was literally the most empowering act of my entire life. And finally, about in 2012, I went for this conference called the Reconstituting Female Authority in Islam conference in UC Santa Barbara. And it was there that I really learned about the vast history of female Muslim scholars and leaders in Islam. And, all Muslims know about the very active role that the women in the Prophet Muhammad's family played.
Aisha and Khadija.
Yeah, not only them, even Hafsa, she owned the only copy of the Quran after the Prophet's death. There were tens of thousands of female Muslim scholars who passed down the tradition of the Prophet and who memorized his quotations and passed it down to the next generation. And so learning about this amazing history really inspired me. And so when I came back, I enrolled in Al Rawiya College, and I studied under Sheikh Halima Yusuf. And, it was after a year of hearing her speak that I felt so empowered that I just wanted to hear a woman speak to me on Fridays. And so that's when I thought, you know what, let me just make this mosque now. And so that's why at the Women's Mosque we want to provide a safe space for Muslim women and all women of all faiths to come together and celebrate their sisterhood and, support each other, not, tear each other down and not judge each other. It's, a very safe and welcoming space.
As you put it, apparently in one interview, though, there's no policing of women's bodies, of how we dress or how we, and both Sunni and Shia are welcome. All denominations are welcome.
Yeah, it's a non-denominational mosque, and we've been having Sunnis, Shias, even Buddhist, Christians, Jewish sisters. Everyone has been coming out for this in support. And actually, the inspiration for that is my childhood mosque. The mosque that I grew up in was also a non-denominational mosque. It was, I think it is right now the largest, or one of the largest mosques in California, and that's the Garden Grove Mosque down in Orange County. And they were the first mosque to have a female president. Currently, there are 2 large mosques in Southern California that have female presidents, and that mosque that I grew up in, it had women on the board. When I was growing up, my older sister was the president of the youth group, and men and women prayed in the exact same building, as is the prophetic model. In the Prophet Muhammad's time, men and women prayed in the same building, but a lot of these practices of segregating women started after his death.
Why do you think this has happened, not only with Islam but with every religion, which is one reason I tend to be critical of all of them? Why do you think that it always starts but more or less egalitarian, and then is seized by some group of slightly cuckoo guys, and turned into a conservative? Whatever they do to other guys, they first practice on women, and it must be very painful to watch both the image of Islam so distorted, but also to watch Islam being waved about to cover the actions of groups like ISIL.
Right. As is the case with all religions, the majority of people in all religions are very peaceful, practicing.
Well, I don't mean. Excuse me. I don't mean. I don't mean only the violence, because the violence is epidemic across patriarchy. Right. But I mean specifically the containment of women, the oppression of women.
Well, a part of it is that I also want to just clear the record that, I think there are, people have been asking me about, what's been the reaction to the mosque, and largely everything has been positive. The only negative that I've been experiencing, and our board and also a lot of our congregants have been expressing, is the way that we're seeing stereotypes about Muslim women being perpetuated in the media, and the way that we're seeing our voice and our story with the Women's Mosque co-opted and turned into some sort of story about Muslim women running away from Muslim men, when further from the case.
Right.
We have men on our board. Muslim men have been supporting us and working with us at every single level of this project. And,
this is wonderful. Tell me, do you? We've only got a minute or so left. Do you hope that this will spread? Can we look forward to a chain of women's mosques of America?
We'll see. We're a volunteer-run organization, and we rely completely on donations. But, based on, what we have to work with, we definitely do hope to spread as much as possible. I
just think it's a brilliant idea and a very gutsy one. And I'm delighted to hear that there's been little or no pushback from the more conservative members of the community, because maybe they realize, if they don't realize this is an idea whose time has come, at least they're waiting to see. And all of that is progress. So
women's mosques, have existed around the world for centuries, and the majority of them are in China. So this is really nothing new that we're doing. It's just the first women's mosque in America, and that's the only thing new about it.
I just think it's lovely. And I think it's lovely that the idea was born from now at the ripe old age of 29-year-old young woman. It's a source of delight and pride. So thank you for what you're doing. Is there a website that people can find out more? Let's tell them.
It's womensmosque.com.
Womensmosque.com, MOSQUE, for those of you who do not know how to spell mosque, and you should. Womensmosque.com. Congratulations, masalam, and all the possible good luck in the world.
Thank you. Salam and peace to you all.
One last quick break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I will be right back to offer some fighting words.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back again, in time for Fighting Words. The air is filled with analyses and articles and blogs about the women who are supposedly flocking to Syria and Iraq to join with the force calling itself the Islamic State. And why are they doing this? And how can this be? And they're discovering it on the internet. But they're smart young women. They're educated. They're liked. They think. They're caring. How can they be so ripe for radicalization? One in particular, Aqsa Mahmoud, came from Britain and apparently has become a vocal supporter and one of the most established online recruiters for the group, often targeting 15-year-olds because 15-year-olds can make a perfectly good wife, whereas a 14-year-old male is less useful as a combatant. But Mahmoud, interestingly enough, has also occasionally alluded to boredom doing housewifely duties, and she furthermore admonished the women she's been corresponding with online, saying, "Sisters, please, for the sake of Allah, contact the sisters who are online rather than approaching the brothers. Also know the fact that many brothers whom you contact and chat to are already married. Have some self-respect and don't be a homewrecker." And characteristic of her youth, she ends it with a smiley face. But the interesting part to me is that men who are supposedly zealous about the caliphate and their purity in terms of their religious belief are already married and are flirting online. And of course, who's being blamed? The homewreckers, women. So it sent me back to see what I had written about women who join groups that are violent in The Demon Lover. And indeed, there's a whole chapter called The Token Terrorist. I'd researched all around the world, Baader Meinhof in Germany, Red Brigades in Italy, Red Army in Japan, groups in Latin and South America. I'd saturated myself in the data. And the chapter also includes quotes, whenever they are gettable, from women who have joined or left or survived or been killed in such groups. The chapter also has two epigraphs which are revealing, I think. The first is, anyone who knows anything of history knows that great social changes are impossible without the feminine ferment. Social progress can be measured exactly by the social position of the fair sex, the ugly ones included. That's Karl Marx. And the other quote is from Sergei Nechayev, the revolutionary, and it is an amazing one. Women should be divided into three main types. First, those frivolous, thoughtless, and vapid women whom we may exploit as confused liberals. Second, women who are ardent, gifted, and devoted, but who do not belong to us, because they have not yet achieved a real revolutionary understanding. And finally, there are the women who are with us completely, who have been fully initiated, and who accept our program in its entirety. We should regard these women as the most valuable of our treasures, without whose assistance we cannot manage. Then there are many quotes from women and many examples of why they join, which is almost inevitably chercher l'homme, because of a man, a husband, a brother, a father, a lover. But it's not that hard to understand. Just as the structure of the male corporate world is the means for a woman to rise in a capitalist economy, playing the game by following his rules, so is the structure of a male revolution the means for a woman to rebel. The knowledge that she's exchanging one form of male leadership and style for another is not always a tolerable knowledge, certainly not at first, and then suddenly all at once it can be too late. The colonized, in general, are considered an invaluable resource, another treasure by the colonizer, in the colonizer's war against another colonizer. So we've seen that there is sometimes through the draft and force, but sometimes through willing participation, The colonized serve in their masters' armies. It's an undeniably powerful identification with the colonizer, since to be him was to be human. So you had the Gunga Dins fighting with the British. You had the men of France's Pacific Island colonies in World War I. You had the troops in Nepalese Gurkha troops in the Indian Army. It's an amazing pattern. And so it's not surprising that women identify men's interests as their own. All women at some time or another, in one way or another, are forced to do so. And the quote-unquote terrorist woman is doing the same thing writ large in letters of fire. The woman who lies in terror's arms is clasped in an intricate emotional bondage. One cord, coiled around her brain, is her own justifiable human indignation at the suffering of her people, her country, or her planet. Many of these young women who go are deeply upset over Syria and Iraq. This anger has never been taken seriously, since being female she's expected to be altruistic anyway, and besides she's less than human. So another bond slips into place, her rage at being a woman in what appears to be a male universe of perception, thought, and action. There is, too, the silken rope of what Nechayev termed initiation, the bond of her own lust for approval, respect, an acceptance which might mean relative freedom and power, that loops around her spine. In his world, the elite are those who claim to fight and sacrifice on behalf of those beneath them. To confront on your own behalf means the humiliation of acknowledging your own oppression, as well as the risk of being accused of selfishness. So she who lies in terror's arms clutches for another bond of reassurance, and it is waiting to knot around her loins charisma. The men will initiate her, and she will be almost one of them. Other women will look upon her with awe, meaning she can recruit them. The charisma attaches because of her intensifying proximity to death. She becomes even more of a treasure to him, since she will be lost to him, and since he loves only what he can lose or kill. How well this thread meets now with another around her throat, her well-fostered nurture and mothering instinct, which longs to interpose between death and others. At best, then, she believes he can free her by annihilation, or annihilating the subhuman female persona she has worn. If she is to be consumed by his fires, they will grant her her version of his definition of ecstasy. In all this, she is allowed to feel that she is heroic, altruistic, noble, and an exception to her sex. And the final bond, pure satin steel, the color of blood ruby, is knotted around her heart. It is, in almost every case, her own personal passion for an individual man. And will she struggle now? Not likely. From Marx through Nechayev to Ortega, they have used her and acknowledged it. They have proclaimed aloud their exploitation of her, written it out in print, denied it, and then reaffirmed it, practiced it, and they practice it still. They have made it plain. They need women. They cannot do it without us. If they cannot do it without us, then what will happen if we turn from them to our own definitions, our own means, our own energies? And that's it for today. Join us next week for a great show. Mona El-Tahawy, the Egyptian journalist and our Middle East correspondent, will be here. Yanita, the internationally known singer-songwriter, will be with us, celebrating her new album and her politics. And, ta-da! Gloria Steinem, my favorite recidivist guest, will join us. This program is syndicated, but if you can't find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMCLive.com for the show, plus the archive of all our previous episodes, and at iTunes worldwide, where you can stream, download, and subscribe to the show's podcast. Also, be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and Executive Producer of this program, Julie Burton, Senior Producer, Crystal Williams Chancellor, and our founding sponsor, Regina K. Scully. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host, and here's the last straw for this week. Enjoy Women's History Month while you can. You know, they give us 1 month, and then there's also they give us another month in Black History Month, and then the other 10 months are White Male History Months. So enjoy it while you can. It really is the last straw. Do join us next week, though, right here on Women's Media Center, live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.